We have suffered a long time from poor forecasting, and this is an area, please, I would ask the committee to talk to the National Treasury on a very serious note. The exaggerations are in the National Treasury, and let me just give one example. When I was doing the budget for Consolidated Fund Services, this is where my salary is paid from. I found out that my salary was budgeted at 3 times what I'm paid. Wow. I am the only state officer in my institution. So there's nothing like confusion there. I'm all alone. So I asked them, why is the budget showing 3 times what my annual salary is? And it was like that for all the state officers.
What was the answer, madam?
Chairman, I have not received the answer to date.
Integrity.
Integrity. They have not answered me why they budgeted 3 times what I'm supposed to be earning. So now, if that is only my salary, what I'm saying, we don't know what else is dodgy in there. And then when it comes to the supplementary, these amounts are then reallocated to other areas. So, honorable members, I'm asking you to talk to the Treasury in a very matter-of-fact manner to look at the way they are handling the budgeting. I think the problem is there. There's a big problem. Yes. Thank you very much once again, co-chairs. It's quite a mouthful, but I'll run through them as fast as I can. And I'm going to start with how the high taxation has contributed to capital flight. This was raised by one of the chairs. And indeed, we have seen high taxation leading to high prices, and therefore leading to inflation. So sometimes we do not link the high taxation to the high prices and therefore to the capital flight. And I want to give just one example which will show us the direction in which we are moving. Park fees. This morning, in one of the groups that I am in, I saw the ladies saying, why would I pay $200 to enter the park when I can see the same animals from the Tanzanian side by paying very little? So this is just an example. But some of those things we are doing have a ripple effect. So they affect us in more than one way, and I know my colleagues here will be weighing in on that. Now, in terms of integrity, how can we raise integrity? We must do a root cause analysis. We must say, where did it start raining on us? But let me again just give 2 examples that are making us move into those areas of loss of integrity. One is insecurity. What do I mean by insecurity? If employees, for instance, are not sure whether they'll be employed tomorrow, what do? They, of course, try to gather as much as possible so that they can run away. 2, if employees are insecure in terms of, again, like how long they'll be doing what they're doing, these issues will create uncertainty, and that uncertainty creates loss of integrity. The fear and uncertainty is one of those areas. The other area is borrowing without a plan. This one, I'm using it in a very colloquial sense, in the sense that I have been approving payments of public debt, and I've looked at what we are paying for. Many of those things cannot be identified. You just find a name of why we borrowed. You cannot trace it to anything. you cannot tell what the money was spent for, and therefore there was no economic gain from that borrowing. It is just like taking Fuliza and then you go to the bar and drink it all. You go back home, you'll find your family hungry, and you'll find all those other things. So I don't really need to gainsay this. That is what we have been doing for a long time. I have discussed with the Auditor General and we have said, can we track these loans and see what we did with them? Yes, I think it will help us going forward. But just so you know, honorable members, I did a report to the Committee on Public Debt, and they told me, please check on the loans which we have taken recently in 2022. Tell us if we can link them with a project. They were shocked. We could not. We found some ambiguous definitions of the loans, and the Treasury could not tell us what really we were going to do with those loans. So unless we wake up and link our borrowing to actual economic activity, will not come out of this hole. That I can say without fear of contradiction. Now, Honorable Opio Wandai asked about Article 223 and what kind of amendments we are looking at. And what I can say here is that Article 223 has no problem on its own. In fact, the way it's crafted is very okay, and it can serve this country just the way it is. But here we are talking of abuse. We are talking of preparing budgets which are approved on 30th June, and on 5th of July, I find applications for Article 223. That clearly is an abuse of the system, because we are saying that every once in a while, we will find this item which is not budgeted for, or for which the budget is insufficient, and then we'll need to fall back on Article 223. But you will find people are making applications to employ, people are making applications to repair vehicles, to refurbish buildings. Really, those are some of the items that should not belong to Article 223.
Maybe you would tell us, since you are the controller of budget.
Yes.
And I hear you and I can relate to what you are saying, having been a chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. What then would you recommend this committee, whether it's legislative intervention or constitutional safeguards, that one would protect the country from that abuse of Article 223? And I say this with all due respect to yourself. I remember earlier this year or late last year, when you had to share with the country the kind of intimidation that you had to go through under the last regime to approve payments that were illegal and were basically constituted an abuse of that Article 223. And it's the same thing you're speaking to, Controller, when you speak about loans that cannot be tied to anything. And this always happens in the run-up to an election. And 2022 was no exception. What specific measures then would you ask this committee to help your office and help the country with, in terms of probably a constitutional safeguard to your office, so that you never have to go, not yourself, no other officer serving in your office will ever have to go through what you went through, and we completely stall abuse of that Article 223. Because as you rightly say, and I agree with you, Article 223 is in its rightful place in the Constitution. It is its abuse.
Thank you very much once again, Chair. And
I'm sure you can tolerate that interruption, very many.
Yeah.
No problem. No problem. So, I don't think I can give a blanket recommendation. What I've been doing, actually, and I do that all the time, is to go on a case-by-case basis. But we must have the political will to say, let us budget in an authentic manner and follow those budgets. Because by the time we are falling back on Article 223, we must be sure that this is something that could not be done within the budgeting framework. So, I am seeking that Parliament, when they are interrogating the budgets, to ensure that those accounting officers are disclosing everything that they need to do. Now, this one does not need any addition to the law. It is what I could say, it's an issue of integrity. So, what I'm doing right now with the National Treasury, who are the generators of this, is to, I respectively tell them that this cannot go through under Article 223. And what we have been doing is, if this is a legitimate request, then it goes through the normal supplementary. So we are doing it on a case-by-case basis. If we went blanket, it is very possible that something will come up that requires to be done under Article 223, and then we would not address it appropriately.
Maybe, and you forgive me,
yes,
because I am very keen on this. I say that informed by where I have come from. You also took us through a presentation, if members will remember, that was showing the variances between the BPS estimates, the estimates are tabled by the National Treasury, and maybe that's why it begins to beat us as a country.
Yes, yes.
Because if you ask me, and Kwame will bear me witness, and Masinde, we're in the month of October, November now. The budget policy statement and budget making process has already begun. But
For next year.
For the next financial year. But what we do is a copy and paste budgeting process. So by the time people come to actual budget making now in April to June, that's when they realize there is something we never budgeted for. I'll give you the case example this financial year. We put in a lot of money to subsidize farmers in fertilizer inputs and other inputs. We had blessings of the rains, and Honorable Eugene Omalo will bear me witness that farmers in Trans Nzoia and the North and South Rift have done very well in terms of producing maize. But the Ministry of Agriculture never planned for maize dryers until when the Met Department announces there's going to be El Nino, and we are caught flat-footed, and we start running around helter-skelter now looking for maize dryers. You buy those maize dryers at a more probably pricier price, since it's a last-minute procurement. So what is it, maybe Margaret and His Excellency, you have to bear with me on this one. What is it that we can do to make that process more efficient? And maybe you don't have to answer now, maybe think through it together with Kwame and the others, because we are looking at things that will be sustainable, things that will help us in the country, so that we don't end up with huge fiscal deficits, huge borrowing, huge debt financing, and end up spending all our money paying debt that we should have avoided. Maybe it may not be a question you could answer now, but you can think through it, send us your thoughts probably together with the others. How can we make the budget making process for our country more efficient and more effective?
Co-Chair, I just wanted to propose that perhaps we allow them to answer, then we do another round,
okay,
so that we don't disrupt their...
Well guided. Forgive me, I just happen to be too passionate about these budget issues.
Thank you, thank you. I would then like, in that case, and I agree with the chair that it is something we can look at actually in another forum, so that we address these issues effectively. Let me move to the dollar issue raised by Honorable Omar, in which he has said that there are actually a lot of dollars which are being hidden away in the economy, because then our currency depreciating all the time. Now, I'm just wondering, a lot of these dollars that we get come from the diaspora. Now, I'm effectively informed, and I think rightly so, that right now there are a lot of panya routes through which dollars come in. I mean the panya routes in the sense that people have devised methods where dollars can be repatriated, say, to South Africa, and then the money finds its way to Kenya in some way, so that it evades the banking system. So if it doesn't go through the banking system, then you may not catch up with it. So there are a lot of dollars coming in through the black market, and because of the way the currency is depreciating, nobody wants to bring them to the open market because they want the rates to go up. Let me make a suggestion of what I think we can do. I think there should be some form of amnesty, just the same way we have done with the income tax. Can we have some amnesty for people to bring in dollars so that they can be received without any penalties? That is one thing I hope the committee can look at. Now, then there was a question on housing levy in terms of the housing plans and how this was initially stopped and what was intended for offtake then never took off. Allow me to speak like an ordinary citizen in this one. The citizens have lost trust. Now, what happens if every time you speak to someone, they do not keep their word? I think you will not be in a position to trust them the next time they speak. Why I'm saying this is that I keep my ears open a lot of times when people are arguing, my friends on the golf course and all that, and I hear them say, who tells you we'll get these houses? So that lack of trust is making people not to trust the process. It is a very noble idea, and it is supposed to help the citizens. It is supposed to create jobs. It is even supposed to create, all those nice things. But how can we work on improving the trust of the citizens? This is a bit abstract. I don't know how we can even measure the trust, but I'm talking from personal experience because I've been hearing what people are saying on the WhatsApps, on Facebook. Just listen to what the people are saying. They are either completely lost trust or they are losing trust. So that is something we need to look at. Now, which items would we be looking at reducing? Commodities. Supposing we were given by the magic wand and told, pick 3 items that you would like reduced. Here, I would be looking at the food basket of those who are in say the bottom of the pyramid. What are the things that they use? Something to cook with. So that is one area we'll be looking at. I've been looking at the prices of kerosene, the price of makaa, the price of cooking fuel generally is a really sore area because no one can do without it. Then we are looking at sending money. You all know that the cost of sending M-Pesa right now has really gone up. Most of the people who have come to the urban areas, who are working in lowly jobs, probably they are security guards, they are maids, we call it. They have to send some money home to their parents, to their children, because they can't live with them. Now imagine when we impose and increase excise taxes on sending money, then we are squarely hurting these people. The third thing I would be looking at is VAT on food. And I've looked at all sorts of taxes here. VAT on food. Now, when we introduce VAT on unga, a staple food, then you know the very lowly are going to suffer. So if I had three things to choose, those are the things I would choose. Let me move to Senator Umugeni. I'm sure there'll be round two, like we were told. So here we are looking at proposals on allocations to cash transfers. This is pleased to increase the amount. And these people are not many. I think when the last time was over 70s were counted, they were not very many. And they are they have less time with us, isn't it? So even if we double this amount to 4,000, I think would really help them, because they are also subject to inflation and they can only buy so little sugar, so little salt. The 2,000 cannot buy anything. And then it is delayed for many, many months. So if there is anything we would do, it is to increase that amount and give it in a more timely manner. There are these low cadre employees earning the 15,000 who are really hardly hit. And the senator asked if there is an ideal wage that I would suggest. I think I would rather give this to the economists. I don't think this will be good for an accountant. As an accountant, I look at reducing costs. But the economists, I think, will chip in on the ideal minimum wage. Reduction of deficit financing. Indeed, we know that we are in a cash crunch. But this cash crunch ni ile ya kujitakia. Because, like I told you before, we have been borrowing and partying with borrowed money. That is why we are where we are. So we must look very carefully at our spending and reduce this spending. Some of the areas that could be in for budget cuts, and I think the government is already taking measures, thanks to my reports. I think in part, I've been reporting where we are spending most. Travel both domestic and international. Then secondly, refurbishments. Yeah, there are many times people are throwing away curtains and bringing in new ones, and a lot of issues like that are very wasteful. Then thirdly, I would be looking at something like the fuel. And here fuel, I'm looking at the kind of vehicles that we buy vis-a-vis the kind of journeys that we make. So look at it in terms of why go to Mombasa if you can go to Naivasha. And I think a concerted effort across the economy can bring a lot of savings in that. Under the PFM expenditure ceilings, we were looking at the current budgets that do not comply with the PFM ceilings. Are they then illegal? Now, I would like to disqualify myself from the illegality in this particular instance, because when we look at national government, we have the sectors, and sectors have leaders, and these things go through public participation. All I can ask is, can these sector leaders do their job? Because if they did their job properly, then we wouldn't be discussing here about illegalities. And circulars are there. I think if they are followed, we should be having the kind of budgets that we expect. Hiring sprees in the counties, which are up to 47. How about the national government in terms of employment? Yes, I've been doing both national and county reports. on personnel emoluments. So far, the income ratio to the employment has been okay in national government. But watch this space. I'll be reporting on the first quarter. If I find that it has exceeded, you will see it in my reports. Now, going to the counties, let's all appreciate that the counties have a lower income base. So the denominator that they are using to calculate the ratio is much lower. So what are we saying here? The implication is that if the monies to the counties were higher, then probably we would be talking of a lower percentage. If the on-source revenue raised at the counties was higher, it means that the denominator will be higher and therefore the percentage will be lower. So the message I've been giving to the counties is please try to increase your inflows, because if you increase your inflows, then it means you can accommodate more employment. So that same level of employment would be a much lower percentage if the revenues were higher. So that's what I can say. Now, from Madam Catherine, thank you for the compliment. We have suffered a long time from poor forecasting, and this is an area, please, I would ask the committee to talk to the National Treasury on a very serious note. The exaggerations are in the National Treasury, and let me just give one example. When I was doing the budget for Consolidated Fund Services, this is where my salary is paid from. I found out that my salary was budgeted at 3 times what I'm paid. Wow. I am the only state officer in my institution. So there's nothing like confusion there. I'm all alone. So I asked them, why is the budget showing 3 times what my annual salary is? And it was like that for all the state officers.
What was the answer, madam?
Chairman, I have not received the answer to date.
Integrity.
Integrity. They have not answered me why they budgeted 3 times what I'm supposed to be earning. So, now, if that is only my salary, what I'm saying, we don't know what else is dodgy in there. And then when it comes to the supplementary, these amounts are then reallocated to other areas. So, honorable members, I'm asking you to talk to the Treasury in a very matter-of-fact manner to look at the way they are handling the budgeting. I think the problem is there. There is a big problem. Yes. Then let me move to the manual payrolls and what is the role of the COB in terms of manual payrolls. Now, my role, as per the mandate given by the Constitution, I think I don't have to repeat it. My role is advisory as far as this is concerned. So because I look after budget implementation and because I report on a regular basis, I am in contact with this information. So, first of all, is that when the counties prepare their budgets, they bring the drafts to my office. We analyze and we advise them. Every so often, they will tell us we have had and we have made the adjustments. Now, when it comes to implementation, there is a lot of mischief. They'll always go and do other things. And then they'll always prepare a supplementary budget to try and sanitize what has been done. So my office has insisted on always trying to bring them to the straight and narrow in spite of this. But you can imagine that because we have so many counties to begin with, and all of them are doing something, my office is extremely busy trying to check these things and ensuring that they are not going beyond the ceilings. Now we have a system now of registering all workers at the county. The UHR, there is a United HR system which is taking over from the IPPD and which has more features to capture employees and to avoid ghost workers, so to say. So this system is in progress and within which they have complied with this system. This system is being run by the State Department of Public Service. So they keep complaining that that State Department takes very long to implement their requests. But so what we do is that we are consistently and continuously ensuring that they are putting more and more staff onto that system, of course with a deadline of this year. They are supposed to have complied fully by the end of this financial year. On pending bills, honorable members, like I told you, the pending bills are very high and the causes are many. Now, yet the COB pays current bills instead of the old bills. I would like to respond to this that I don't pay. Instead, what I do, I approve withdrawals for the payment of pending bills. Now, there is a hidden gem there, in that if I approve the withdrawal, I have no control on who is paid. The money will go to the county, and then the accounting officer will pick different payees and pay them. If you remember, sometime last financial year, I had requested the central bank to give me access to the bank statements of the counties so that I would be tracking these payments. That became a cropper because the Council of Governors threatened to go to court. They could not allow any such thing because there's a lot happening in those statements that apparently I'm not supposed to see. So the long and short of it, Honorable, I have ensured that the counties bring me a list of approved, eligible, we call them eligible pending bills. Along with that, they give me a payment plan and they tell me this is what we think we can accommodate within our cash flows. Now, what I do from my office is to implement that payment plan. When they are bringing the requisitions, I make sure that whatever they say they'll be paying per month is included in their requisitions. Or else, I hold their requisitions until they comply. So I make it a kind of policing affair, which shouldn't be the case, but because they are very difficult in complying, then those problems are there. Now, the other problem that I must mention at this point is the counties are always saying that they don't receive their money in good time. So even when they give a payment plan, if they do not receive their monies at the expected time, then they fail to service those pending bills. So that is still another small elephant in the room. Then there is a third elephant, and this third elephant is called ineligible pending bills. These are people who have worked and they are owed money, but for one reason or another, their documentation is incomplete. Either they did not get a proper LPO, or they worked based on good faith. Now they cannot be paid. These are the people you have had who are in real distress, others are dying, and you know, a lot has happened. You are never going to get paid. At the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, we have agreed in the last meeting that there should be an intergovernmental committee which will be looking at ineligible pending bills to see which ones can be, ratified through some legal process so that they can be paid, and which ones should be thrown out completely. So that is an ongoing process. Let me move to tax reforms and what we are going to get in form of taxes, saying when we assist the farmers, and this came from the co-chair there. I think this is more of a self-examination, where we are saying what services can we provide to the farmers to ensure that they actually sell their produce and get the returns that they expected. I'm sure even if they don't pay directly, these people are going to turn around the economy by spending and therefore paying VAT. So if you have, that is what I would say. You don't have to tax them directly.
Without interrupting, I thought Kimani wanted them taxed. It's okay.
I think that's what he was saying, Chair, but I'm opposing that and saying, let's improve the economy and let's improve the spending power. These farmers will spend all that money in the shops and in the bars. They buy beer.
In actual fact, control of budget,
yes,
it is a contribution that they make to the economy. I wanted you to allude to, or I was hoping you'd allude to.
Okay.
Because we are talking about inflation that is largely being driven by food prices. So if the farmers make their contribution in terms of being able to provide us with cheaper food, then they have made their contribution in the social contract that Arthur was talking about.
Okay.
I think you've answered it. So there is that contribution, and then there is the purchasing power that will be in their hands. I think the questions have run out now. I need to give...
You've done very well. You don't have to answer everything. Some of them were just general comments, like I'll make one at the tail end.
Yes, there's just one Chair, which on sustainability of economic engagements. And I think there was this question that about the counties, that in terms of what they are doing, is there sustainable development, and what is the role of my office? And I thought I should just contribute to this by saying that the counties have an elaborate planning framework. They start with the County Integrated Development Plan, from which the annual development plans are derived. So if they get it right and ensure there is proper public participation, AP as we call it, then the annual development plans will be derived from that. Then additionally, my office is ensuring now, and this we have made our duty, to ensure that the program-based budgeting, where we link the spending to particular outcomes, is done properly. Then I think we'll be home and dry.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
Comment?
Yes, I'm conscious about the shortage of time and the pressure of time, so I'll answer only 4 questions, and I won't take more than 10 minutes. So I think Honorable Kimani Chuma asked me a very direct question, which is basically about widening the tax base. I think we need to make a conscious choice, which is that if you decided that we can subsidize farmers as taxpayers, and then they have a bumper harvest, and decide for whatever reason politically that they should not pay tax, then you know what you've done is you've shrunk the tax base in terms of the number of people who are then eligible to pay income tax. So you then decide that you should be conscious that the decision you're making is that you're going to put that money back to consumption taxes, and that's fine. But at least what you then know is that this is what you've traded off. You subsidize farmers, especially large farmers, because large farmers are the ones who actually have surpluses to sell, and then government gives them a guaranteed return. So you subsidize them, you're giving them a guaranteed return. It means you're redistributing income from lower people to people, large farmers in Kenya. If that is the decision you're making, then it's fine. But you be conscious that you're redistributing income from smaller people to large industrial farmers. If that's the choice, that's okay. But let's be, admit it upfront. The second question that you asked me was about the housing development labor. The economics of housing is this. Modern houses are actually capital intensive. They're not labor intensive. What you're asking me is this. At the Institute of Economic Affairs, our analysis of the memorandum that was issued together with this and some of the information that has been issued, that is not the best way to spend public money. So I'll give you an alternative. The alternative that we've done some very hard thinking about it at the Institute of Economic Affairs is, if you scrap the levy fund, well, you get to keep more money perhaps, but if you scrap the housing levy fund, this is what you could do for the same amount of money. Kenya has 40,000 schools. The number of children in schools in the next 11 years is going to double. Today, 15 million children wake up and go to public school. What that means is that there's a serious shortage in school infrastructure in Kenya, which the government of Kenya does well. Whatever we might talk about the quality of education, the government of Kenya historically has done a pretty decent job educating children. Creating quite something. So already the Ministry of Education is struggling to actually keep school infrastructure to match the number of children going to schools. So if Parliament chooses to have a school infrastructure development plan and then fund it every year with this amount of money, you actually cover a greater part of the Republic, and you actually do much, much more for the Republic than housing plan, which is 250,000 people. We have 14 million houses. Those houses will definitely go because they're very heavily subsidized, but you're actually again redistributing income from low-income people to people who can own condominiums and studios. I don't think that is equitable distribution of cash. So maybe that's an idea you can consider. I'll come to the third question.
On the assumption that the housing fund is what is being used to build the houses, because what you're proposing then is use the fund to now expend it on public school infrastructure.
Yes,
which is actually not the case. Maybe probably if you don't know,
no,
the housing fund levy is not being used to construct houses.
No, but the rationale then that means that actually the housing fund is being sold to Kenyans with some misconception, because the idea is if it's the offtake.
We've heard that from the golf courses as a control sake. People have all kinds of perceptions and misconceptions.
Yeah. Yes, but if you speak about it as a housing levy and the way we sell it to our colleagues at the Institute of Economic Affairs is, this is your contribution, there's a possibility that you might find the fund. Yeah. I mean, you might find a house. That's the claim that people have. But anyway, regardless of it, if you place personal houses on one side and public schooling on the other, every day public schooling provides greater public value. It's even good for social cohesion, and the cost effectiveness is superior to what you would get from constructing 250,000 houses per year. But let's leave that. Let me go to the third question, coming from Hassan. He asked about where does a default take us to. He's not here, but look, we are Kenyans and we are taxpayers. A default would probably be extremely damaging to everybody. Nobody benefits from a default. Nobody. I don't think anybody benefits from a default at all. So obviously it's a tough thing. But what we suggest for the government of Kenya to say, let Kenyans actually understand the risks. I think the way it's been sold to Kenyans about the payment of the public debt is as if we should be made to be scared. That, look, if you're not too careful and you continue to ask us questions, there'll be a default and you lose your pensions and all this and all that stuff. I think to ensure that, because there's going to be pain regardless, an adult conversation about what the options the government is choosing is the superior alternative. We hope it doesn't come, because we know that even after next year's big ticket payments of the Eurobond, subsequent years will have very significant payments still required. So we think that this burden is one thing. Part of sharing the burden is to treat people with respect, right? Citizens, let's have a conversation around this question in that way. So there are no shortcuts, we agree, but perhaps the tone of the conversation could actually be more conversational as opposed to lecturing people. Then, Honorable Kalonzo,
do you think the Kenyan side, sorry to interrupt, would borrow from the Korean example, what we heard from Other, where ordinary Koreans were able to say, okay, we're going to pay a public debt, and they contributed over 27 billion. Do you see that happening in this country?
Let me tell you what.
Further taxation.
I think that's a good example, but the truth is, Kenyans are still even struggling to buy food. Yes. So asking them to contribute to a government public sector kitty to pay for that, and they're paying through taxes. So I think the respect is you pay through taxes. These are difficult times. It doesn't matter whose fault it is, by the way, whether it's the administration, the incumbents, or their predecessors. The point is, we're all here together as Kenyans. We cannot eject from citizenship. Let's all try and hold this thing together. I think that's the point. What could be done at this moment is this. There are 14 million households in Kenya. As we demonstrated, for the lowest 20% of households, their income over the last 1 year has shrunk by 30% relative to the prices of food. Those people need help. So if government wanted to extend help to them by expanding the food subsidy, and it can be distributed very easily through mobile money transfers, this was done. And this is a temporary measure. It is not a permanent one. So your concern about its sustainability is valid. But we could do this for 1 year until we see what happens. It is cheap, 8 billion shillings a month. That is 1 day's collection of revenues based on today's estimates. So that's one thing to consider. It's immediate, it will be extremely helpful, and it will even calm people quite a bit, showing government is here working together with us. Now, the 3 mistakes that you mentioned, Honorable, yes. These are the ones that we at the IE have tracked. There's no doubt anymore that the SGR and the cost at which it was executed was a monumental mistake. I'll give you an example. The entire revenue that has been generated from the SGR for 6 years is 72 billion. That is not even enough to pay the principal payments that were required. So obviously that's a sinking fund. I think it would have to be treated very, very differently. So that's one. More recently, you see, the food problem in Kenya, I think, is improperly analyzed. The problem with food's availability and food security and cost of living is not that there's no supply, sometimes supply is short, but that households at a certain income level, even if the food was available in the market, their income is, so it's an income problem. The conversation we've gone with so far is to subsidize farmers, and it tends to be farmers who are the ones who got the fertilizer and got the seed, and so they have big stores. But if somebody in a certain market, say, if this was a Bomas village, and their income has not grown for 5 years, that supply does not help them. That was another mistake. Then government starts to trade cooking oil. All that money, and we are not questioning the intent, we are questioning the design of these policies. It was improperly designed. The way to do that is actually to support households to be able to consume during a shock such as the one that we saw. But most of the support that government has given are to traders, but more specifically to the supply side. So we might have food stores with 67 million bags of grain, right? But we might not have enough. People might still suffer because they do not have enough money to buy the several kilograms that they need per month. That conversation needs to be reframed. It is a demand side problem, not necessarily a supply side problem anymore. So that was a mistake. The final one is basically the debts. And I think the Control of Budget has mentioned this, the Office of the Control of Budget has. Look, you cannot run a deficit of 6 to 7% per year, regardless of where you were, for 10 consecutive years as we did in the last administration, not expect to have a problem. It was a matter of when, not if. So I think that Parliament needs to be a little bit more conscious about Treasury selling to you that infrastructure solves all problems. It doesn't. As we can tell, we built a lot of infrastructure, stadiums and all those other things. It's not paying for the debt now. They're still going back to the citizens and getting that money to pay for them. Parliament needs a serious conversation with itself about whether you performed your oversight functions well. And my judgment, with due respect, gentlemen and ladies, is you did extremely poorly.
Thank you.
You must own this problem as well.
Thank you. You hear that, Kimani?
Your Excellency, I hear that, but Kwame will agree with me that within those 10 years we are dealing with a very tyrannical regime, and the Control of Budgets will bear me witness. You know what you have to go through.
On a lighter note, just a minute, Eugene.
Yes.
Just as Kimani likes to stretch us backwards, I can tell you for a fact, part of the reason we are sitting here today is because of the integrity issues that the Control of the Budget spoke about. Even as presently constituted, Kimani's parliament and Wandai's parliament is under capture, state capture. So you shouldn't expect much from them. And this is why we have to really go deep into these things. Even as we are sitting here, I said this is not even for you. My good friend, Speaker Wetangula, goes out there to dismantle Azimio coalition, where speakers ruling integrity issues, because he wants to use the 21 members of Jubilee, all right, to be able to carry on to make sure that Kimani's taxes are sustained. Sorry, Kimani.
Your Excellency, you definitely know I take great exception to discussing the Speaker of the National Assembly in this forum, and especially on a matter completely unrelated to the economic issues that we are dealing with. Matters that of grave concern to the people of Kenya. And with all due respect to myself and Nobo Pio and I who sit here, we must give credit to at least the 13th Assembly that we have been bold enough to deal with some of these issues touching on the economy. And I believe history will judge the 13th Assembly different from other assemblies, but also to say, without giving excuse to Parliament, I think is more of a leadership issue than the institution of Parliament. It is about leaders who appreciate the role of institutions, that the controller of budgets is an institution, not the person of Mary Nyakango, that Parliament is an institution, not the persons who sit in Parliament, and respect those institutions, that they have a role to play in budget making, in helping the government and the executive to deal with matters to do with the economy. Therefore, when the controller of budget tells you that paying Telcom, looting 6 billion shillings 2 days to a general election is not right, don't put a gun over her head. Respect that office of the controller of budget. When Parliament, Your Excellency, because I have sat as a chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, I can tell you things that some of us had to go through because we put our foot down. Masinda is here, he will tell you.
Continue putting your foot down.
And I will assure you, Your Excellency, Parliament as a leader of majority, I will make sure even this government under William Ruto will have to abide by the Constitution and respect institutions. Therefore, let us not have a blanket condemnation of Parliament. I know we have had this debate for the last 7 years with Kwame on the role of Parliament.
Can I finish in a minute?
Co-chairs.
I think I took the floor from you.
No, co-chairs, I was just proposing we go by only proposal. That they finish, then we do a second round. Because we have a second round.
Okay. And so the final point, which is basically what you asked for. Honorable Wandai asked, you did not ask me this, but please allow me to just answer. Which specific expenditures do you want to see GOK reduce? Yes. So we will tell you. In the year 2019, the Institute of Economic Affairs was concerned about how much fuel government was buying. So we went through all the parliamentary estimates and went line by line through every purchase of fuel by the public sector, keeping aside the military and the police. And the figure that we found suggested to us that the government of Kenya was buying 150,000 liters of diesel per day from the numbers that Parliament approved for expenditure. That cannot be right. Where are all these vehicles going to? Either that, or government vehicles are pumped with fuel and they just ride around. It was an enormous number. And then we also checked telecommunications. So we checked what telecommunications are, and we find out that certain departments in the public sector have a telecommunications bill of 20,000 shillings per person per month. Now, 20,000 shillings per person per month, per person. So it's not basically for a whole office of 30 people. That's a lot of money. So what I'm trying to suggest here is, if Parliament took its work diligently and went line by line through items, asking, why are we buying this quantity of things? Which is what you expected by the Constitution to do. You would find a lot of space for savings without having to have an abrupt cut in any budget, because you will save a lot of money which could be could be directed to the more important things that we spoke about. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now,
We can now hear the person who guides Parliament in making those decisions.
Thank you, Chair. I want to comment on 223. My view is that we have a different opinion, members, that Article 223 is not foolproof because it requires parliamentary approval. And my English reading of approval is something very different, that Parliament must be satisfied that that approval is within the law. So we have some proposals in terms of perhaps tightening the PFM law to give specific conditions under which Article 223 is applied. And that's the way it is. Parliament must approve. So the disconnect is that Treasury cannot go ahead and actually spend that money knowing that Parliament, what if Parliament refuses to approve? The leader of majority is way where Waraka was actually, Parliament refused to approve Waraka payment under 223. So I think it's high time we try and look at the PFM. We have some proposals, yes, that can sort of try and tighten the condition under which Article 223 is applied in the PFM.
And everybody knows what happened to me after I refused to approve that payment.
You are suggesting PFM Act, not...
Yes, PFM Act. Yeah. We have some proposals. Okay. I don't know, the lawyers can guide, but we have some proposals.
We need them. That's important. Yeah. Okay.
And then the second issue is the basic pay. What I said, members, is that if you are earning $1 million shillings, right, and you make it, just go up, you make it, you make the levy tax deductible, right? It's deducting and minus deducting. The net amount is that for in a month, you will save 25,000 shillings per month. If you make it, sorry, I mean you lose from the baseline where there was no housing levy to the housing levy, making it tax deductible, you lose 25,000 shillings per month. If you make it not deductible, you lose 30,000 shillings per month. So once we just thought perhaps for clarity purpose, just to have some, extra income for disposable for spending, perhaps we need to look at that. Around the administration of this housing levy in terms of taxation, to see whether there is any ambiguity in that. Even I think that a recent AG's direction that I think, are they directors who are not subject to the housing levy? So I think some legal gaps that require to be addressed. I leave the question for dollars to the expert here to help me out. Tax exemptions. What we are saying is that within the East African Community Customs Union, there are some specific loopholes, Honorable Omar, in the sense that sometimes the minister just through the governing, the minister's council in Arusha, they just grant 2 or 3 entities, and I have a gazette notice here actually, which I don't want to read, just 2 or 3 or 4 entities to exempt them from import duty, because import duty is an ECMA, a customs union issue. You realize, 2 or 3 entities have been given that rebate of not paying import duty. On the basis of that, we're not very sure. So we thought perhaps it is high time we look at this and try and tighten that. Number 2 is that other than perhaps health, agriculture, some of these things don't make sense. Right? Per year. Right? Per year. And development is 30 million. 30 million. 30 million. So essentially, it's as good as perhaps trying to rethink and just closing down that particular entity and trying to map them. That's the kind of MDS saving we're talking about. That within national government, we've done so well, and perhaps members I'm conflicted, but I think, let me say this, that the cutting for foreign travel, domestic travel within national government itself, either those transfers or we need to look into the A&A collection. How can we allow some of these people just let them collect A&A and just, why are they relying on exchequer? What they will do, and I think members of the National Assembly know, at the initial stage of the year, in the estimates, they'll understand A&A completely. Towards supplementary, to actually, the last parliament to approve a higher collection of A&A. So these are the things we need to perhaps go into the books and see how to deal with those ones.
Now, just a clarification. Please allow me not to disturb you beyond that. Assume you're 60, you retired 60, right? Alright. There are people who are about to retire and who are already having to pay the housing levy. Right? Do they have any hope whatsoever of getting any house, why don't you then think in terms of the willing? That's why we talk about progressive something, rather than having a blanket application. And these are some of the things that get discussed on golf courses, all right? Because you see, and then the trust element. Can we really trust these people? Are they not collecting this money to do other things and just get lost? So since you advise Parliament, have you thought of this? I don't look at Kimani because I don't see it. Just look at this trade.
He's probably looking at me, Your Excellency, because you probably may not understand the nature of the housing levy we are dealing with. It's now a tax.
Yeah,
It's an outright tax.
Yeah.
And to ask whether someone who is about to retire, whether they should pay tax, is akin to asking you if you are above 60 and you are retired, do you pay for tax that provides health care to other people who are fall sick and you are not sick yourself? And it happens. Or the estate of dead people. They pay taxes to provide services.
Yeah.
And that's why I think if we listen to Arthur Muliro
was very
and the
clear
social
on
contract,
fairness.
the social contract,
Yes.
I think is what should guide us on matters tax, other than our political inclinations. And I would really beg we
No. I think
we
this
leave
has
it
nothing to do with political inclination, Kimani. Arthur was very categorical that the tax regime should be fair, should be seen to be fair. And surely, if you're calling housing levy, people are likely then to get a house. This is a common understanding, the street talk. And they will ask you, surely you're paying tax and you're about to retire? What hope in the world, unless it's your grandchildren, will benefit from this kind of thing? So we need to debunk these things without looking at the political.
Excellency, I will invite you because we have the housing department coming tomorrow.
Yes.
I would plead that we leave that matter to them. They will be able to explain to us
Yes.
that the housing tax is not for me to pay a tax to get that house. Actually, it is a tax. When it was a levy before, at 3% is when that argument then would have held.
Okay.
Now that argument cannot hold
Fair enough.
because of the bashing that the levy had, and then it was changed into a tax. And I'm sure Nyaga, who is seated there, who is more on the taxation matters, will be able to explain that better than even Masinde.
Yeah.
And then there is a typology of the typology of these houses that are restricted to various incomes, and the selling price to the market is restricted also to about, is it 55,000 per square meter, and the government then gives the offtake through that housing fund for those by taking the market risk, because it is done through a PPP program. So you get the land, you structure your financing, you come and build, then there are various incomes in terms of the typology, 20 square meters, 40 square meters, and 60 square meters.
Hassan is very conversant with this. When is the first thing due?
That's what I was proposing.
First, we are going to break ground in Mombasa very soon.
Mombasa, you are not actually.
And if you
breaking
pass
ground.
the integrity test on
Pakistan
that
is complete.
Why-
I think we leave the
Why don't
matter
we
of
co-chair
housing.
and deal with it tomorrow?
Yeah, that's I agree with Eugene. Let's deal the housing matter. We have the whole morning tomorrow morning to deal with housing, and I'm sure all of us will have questions to answer.
And we can have Kwame and the rest of the experts.
Yes, you are invited to,
Yes.
since it is an open forum,
We want you to help.
come and help us.
So the other chair was actually, our thought was, I agree with you, the lead of majority, actually the RDL was adjusted from 2% to 1.5% in the Finance Act, as well as IDF going down from 3.5%.
RDL, His Excellency is asking, is the Railway Development Levy.
Yeah, these are from it.
Yes, it was adjusted.
So just use the RDL, say what it is, because it was your proposal that it be reduced.
Yeah, so he said that the Railway Development Levy was adjusted in the Finance Act from 2% to 1.5%
Downwards.
downwards, while the import declaration fee was adjusted from 3.5% to 2.5%. But remember, as we are, and our team behind me, as
And
we are
also, and also, if I remind you,
Yes.
the RDL and IDF for LPG gas was completely removed.
Yes.
And I thought my memory was having me right. I had to
Actually,
Google
you're
and
right,
check.
yeah. So now our imagination was, when you look at August, the landing cost of oil was 108. I think this should be per liter, right? 108 shillings. In September, it went to 115.9. We try to debunk and see what is causing the change, right? Prices, international prices, contribute 46.82% of that cost, right? Now, because the way the railway development levy is applied, so the only change, the extra change, was the railway development levy, which grew by 7.69%, and the import declaration levy, which went up by 7.66%. I'm doing VAT because VAT itself has huge significant contribution to revenues. So I'm not discussing that one. So our proposal, if we looked at some of these small things in a way, because it seems as if the import declaration levy is levied on the CIA, cost, insurance, and flights. So as the price of international prices go up, similarly, this also goes up. So just thinking perhaps if we made it in a way that it no longer perhaps goes in line with the international price and find another way of measuring it, then perhaps it will lessen the burden a bit in terms of the total impact every month going forward.
Yeah, think about that, Masente, a little harder.
Just a thought against revenue collection that is from those particular heads. Yeah. So allow me, Chair, if you don't mind, to my dollar expert.
Yes, Nyaga.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm Robert Nyakango from PBO. Thank you, co-chairs, for this opportunity. On the exchange rate, my initial comment is that we need to address the issue about our exchange rate. It's a risk, and it can become systemic going forward. So I think the question was, what are the main causes? The main primary cause is too much imports relative to our exports. The difference between the two, I got some numbers here, is 5.8 billion US dollars, which is about 900 billion, which you have to finance. You have to find new dollars to pay for your imports. And therefore, when you look at the flows of remittances, the flows of other incomes, and exports, the second issue is the US Federal Reserve intervention in the market, basically to address inflation, which was caused by COVID. The inflation in US was caused by them giving too much money to the public to consume. And therefore, they needed to remove that money from the market.
In subsidies?
Yes, in subsidy. So I think also subsidies have a risk if you overdo them. So when they started removing them by increasing interest rates, then what you're seeing is an outflow of capital. This includes money in the stock market or Nairobi Stock Exchange, and also portfolio investments, whereby people are buying bonds and treasury bills, going back to those countries to buy better instruments anyway. For example, if you're an investor and you are in US, what would you prefer to invest in? A US bond or a Kenyan bond? Yes. When the rates are high. So I think that's the issue. So the capital flow, and it's still going on, and that's why I'm saying we need to address this matter. It's still going on in the stock market. The Safaricom today is trading at 12 shillings 50 cents, down from about 40, I think 2 years ago. Number 3, we have a more developed Nairobi Stock Exchange and a financial market. Our banks are more connected internationally. We actually have Kenya Commercial Bank, Equity, you find them in DRC, in Uganda. We also have a lot of MNCs, multinational corporations here, Coca-Cola, and many others. So when there's a problem in our economy related to fluctuations of our economy or even the dollar, they're more likely to move their money from our economy. So a developed financial market is actually can tend to bring that problem. And you're going to see this, which is similar to South Africa and Egypt. But to less connected economies like Uganda, and Tanzania, we don't see such a big effect. And therefore, I'm able then to answer the earlier question, which is why is Kenya relative to Tanzania and Uganda, why is our shilling being worse off? So that is actually the main answer. And the other answer is FDI. FDI flows. The other issue is about speculation.
What about FDI flows?
The FDI flows to Kenya have been lower compared to Tanzania.
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, it is clear, isn't it? You'd agree that we have lost our competitive edge to Tanzania. We heard that from the panelists.
Yeah, gas.
Tanzania is more attractive investment destination than Kenya.
Why
We should
is
be
that?
asking our questions why. Don't justify.
The primary reason is
Yeah.
gas. Yeah, at this point in time, they're doing gas plants. Secondly, they're doing a big railway development. At this time, we did our SGR in 2013, 15. But then they're doing it
2013
now.
to 2016,
Yes.
and ended up
Yes.
taking it to the bush.
So now, right now, what we are seeing is they're doing much better in FDI than
Yeah,
Kenya
but
at the
what-
moment.
Yeah, this
I could also explain in terms of food. We import more food than them. We import more food than them.
Yeah, that's
Uganda, Tanzania. Let me give another explanation for that. Debt repayments and expectations around debt repayments, particularly the next year's Eurobond, which we took in 2014. Therefore, the markets, I mean, you and me, if you're in the market, you'll be worried about whether the country will be able to repay that that Eurobond, which is dollar-based, and therefore some people may be accumulating some dollars at home or in whichever way, or speculating on them, hoping. And I think this discussion is there. If you're in social media, people expecting the rates to continue worsening. And that's why in my proposal, we have to address the matter of the exchange rate. And finally, let me give the solution, because I just did need to just mention the problems that are providing other issues. One, remittances. Remittances is a quick win if we were to do it. And I think the current government is doing enough in terms of trying to airlift more Kenyans to Saudi Arabia and other countries. I think that's a good positive thing, which can help those flows to compensate for our imports. Secondly, address exports. Thirdly, macroeconomic interventions. One, inflation. When you're fighting inflation, you tend to raise interest rates. I would expect that to be helping us, but it seems it's not responding as much. The other issue is growth. If you improve your growth rate, obviously things are going to look better. But finally, Chair, is regulation. Do we have an opportunity to address the whole aspect about regulation? In 2011-12, I was involved in the committee which was addressing the sudden fall of the Kenya shilling that time. So this problem we had it in 2011-12. Again, Parliament formed an ad hoc committee, a select committee to address this particular matter. So I think this still need to have some discussion going forward on how you can address this matter. Exchange rate is one of the most risky prices if you don't get a hold on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Very much.
Thank you.
just one additional information, Chair, is that I think from the supply side, we need to be a bit careful to address the supply side for cereals. Total imports, and cereals constitute 14% of total imports for 2022 and 2023 to date. 14%
Cereals
of total imports is cereals.
from maize to rice.
Maize to rice and everything. So this import require dollars. So from the supply side, we also need to address some of these bottlenecks of cereals being gotten from abroad.
Couldn't agree more, Masinde, and I think it's the same point that Atta was making in terms of enhanced investment in the agricultural sector to make sure that we reduce on agricultural produce. I'd ask a specific question to Kwame, but maybe any one of you could answer. Are there, or is there an opportunity for us in this committee to recommend a quick fix solution to the problems that bedevil our country today in terms of the state of the economy and the cost of living? or do we just maintain sustainable medium to longer term solutions that will give us a more sustainable way of managing our economy? Because I think, and it's out there in the public domain, people expecting that there can be a quick fix solution at the snap of a finger. Is there such a solution? Because as a student of economics, I do not know of any. Maybe from where you sit,
you might find one, but don't worry.
Your Excellency, I'm talking about quick fix economic solutions, not political ones.
I thought we heard of one, by the way, from the controller budget, and I think when it comes to doubling the 2,000 to 4,000, because we're talking about having people have food on the table, basically. Perhaps, in fact, the most vulnerable, the elderly citizens thing. So that's one thing. So let's not be pessimistic, Kimani. While Kwame tries to answer your question, he didn't answer mine. He didn't answer mine. Why is it the prices of macadamia and coffee and things are? I put it to him that time. Thank you.
You did.
Thank you, Coach. I just wanted to add before Kwame responds. I think part of the reason why we're here is because we have a crisis in our country, and we call you as experts to look at possible solutions, short term, medium, and long term. So we would, even as you guide us, would like to look at what can be done immediately to give Kenyans some relief. And we did it. I mean, when we were in the middle of the COVID crisis, it wasn't just a health crisis, it was a financial crisis. So the taxes that we were able to review at the time, I've referred to them. But also there were things that we did, and some of them Kwame has referred to, particularly in terms of what can be done in the education sector. What we did, we had about 10 billion that went to, Kazi Mitani, the youth. We also were able to allocate, I think it was about 6.5 billion that also went to the education sector. Construction of classrooms, desks, putting money in the pockets of young people across the country. And I think that pushed a lot of people. So we are not just looking at the long term. The short term we're talking about, maybe our colleagues in Kenya Kwanza are very passionate about the affordable housing. We were equally passionate actually in the last administration, because Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda, housing was a key pillar, and everybody was very passionate. But the reality of the circumstances was that we're in a crisis. That can be postponed, it can be done later. And we were able to do that. So the issue of this housing levy being turned into a tax, I think is the most oppressive task. Most Kenyans are saying, we already have mortgages, we can hardly take home a third of our salaries. Imposing this tax on us, and you are forced to pay, it's very oppressive. If there are other ways, my late brother Mike used to say, a good idea can give way to a better idea. If Kwame, and this is very refreshing, the brainstorming we're having, to have new ideas, that we don't have to be fixated on this housing thing, because the main agenda for Kenya Kwanza was really, they were saying it's not about housing, it's about creating jobs. I think that this has been the argument. There can be another way of creating jobs. And these are some of the suggestions you are giving us. And I think they're going to benefit our analysis in terms of the way forward. I would also just ask the budget team from Parliament. We heard from the control of budget the issue of the inflated salaries. Is this what we've been hearing about, budgeted corruption, where the inflations? We heard from Kwame talking about, the fuel, more than can be consumed. The budgeting people, I mean, you can guide us. Is this what we are hearing about budgeted corruption, and what can be done to make a saving from this so that we are able to push on Kenyans. Lastly, the issue of FDI is very worried that we are lagging behind our sister countries like Tanzania and others. We know that our Kenya Kwanza colleagues have said the blitz, the global trips, and I'm told it's a record. In 1 year, 38 trips. I think back in 10 years did 32 trips. Can you probably in the last 1 year give us maybe an indication in terms of contribution to the FDI, foreign direct investment, improvement in this period of this administration? Are you in a position to give us that figure? And lastly, in terms of the global examples we were given by Muliro, which one would you recommend for Kenya? Because we are looking at we are in a crisis. We need to see how to get out. Thank you.
Okay, Omar, second one. Maybe Omar, before you go, Eugene, you may benefit from the knowledge that His Excellency at one point was Minister for Foreign Affairs and President Kibaki, I think.
Yeah. If you need my expert opinion on that, I will.
I was saying that because you were comparing Kibaki's trips, and we also know the conditions.
But also, if you look at the onset years of Uhuru Kenyatta, he did 35 trips in 1 year. Because, in fact, even the Economist wrote an article, Kenyans mocking their visiting president because he was never in the country. I think people try to build relations and see whether they can have a significant inflow. I can tell you some of the bilaterals that have been signed and other countries already on the ground, like Malaysia, to invest in the special economic zone. They're already on the ground to invest in CPO. Kenya probably will be the biggest distributor of CPO in the next couple of years because they're doing the tankage and they've done the feasibility. They think we have the leverage of the East African community, 300 million population, and by definition, African free trade. Anyway, these are things that are real. But I wanted to go back to this issue because I can. You talked about some bad decisions, SGR and the like. Maybe this is the time when I wanted to also ask the control of budget to say there are severe gaps. When we as Kenya Kwanza were campaigning, we had promised a state capture commission. One, to recover lost wealth and to interrogate some of those state capture issues, including the SGR, the expressway, the telecom. I think it's maybe, is it high time we moved in that direction? Because I think Eugene has been making a lot of reference to his past government. And I think it's important to have a national audit of this past government in the last 10 years to see what are some of these interventions we've had here, including from you, control of budget, are outright criminal. So is there a possibility now to trace those funds so that they can probably help us in this cost of living agenda, which Kwame just told us it's only 8 billion a year, and I know a month, which part was looted, what was looted probably is more than that. It could actually do that 1 year program in terms of subsidy. So is there still window for us to recover this wealth, to bring perpetrators to book, and in addition to that, to look at the negligence of some of these deliberate decisions of the SGR, which Kimani says heads or leads to the bush. The second question, which is my final, but I think no, it has been answered. Okay. So I was just referring to my notes. So I think I wanted to get your take on the State Capture Commission and us bringing true accountability to the perpetrators of these economic crimes in the past 10 years.
Mine will go to Nyaka on the second round on the FDIs, the foreign direct investments. And as you've rightly put it, there are some of our peers in the region who in the last year or so, or last 2 years, have attracted more foreign direct investments than we have in Kenya. And as you gave the case of our sister country, one of our neighbors, that are doing their railway now. Would you draw a similar parallel with us at the time we were doing our SGR? And what was the level of our foreign direct investments at the time we were doing our SGR? Because sentiments, economic sentiments play a big role in attraction of foreign direct investments. And therefore, when the world is optimistic that your economy is on the right trajectory, people tend to invest in your country. Therefore, I would want to hear a parallel between when we were doing our SGR and where we are, the termination of our SGR and that of the sister country or a neighboring country, in terms of where did we terminate our SGR? Are we deriving value out of that SGR when it ended up, those in the media have called it the railway to nowhere? That of the sister country, where is it terminating? Are they deriving more value out of it? Two, is our behavior, especially those of us in the political class. The country you referred to, and I'm avoiding to mention countries because we have members of the press here, they get into elections. They go through elections and life continues. Is there a bearing as to the way we behave in this country, where in the run-up, a year to the elections, a year after elections, we are not at ease with ourselves? Does that culture of political violence, and that is precisely why we set up this national dialogue, to make sure that we also end the culture of political violence, does it in any way discourage foreign direct investments from coming into the country?
Well done, Kimani. I think that, so we do not overburden these experts, we could, for example, ask that you update your presentations and be able to recommend to us, because we're on a serious mission and we don't want to fish through you. We're not on a fishing expedition, but we want to be able to know. Kenyans, I started by saying, when I made my earlier remarks, that they are hurting. They demonstrated because of the cost of living. And that's why we felt we didn't want to deal with these other issues and then fail to deal with this all-important matter, according to some of us. Okay. So you could recommend, this is without necessarily borrowing Kimani's quick fix, because there can't be any quick fixes. Is there something we can do with regard to the taxation regime? Because it's always very good when you tax people who are willing or who are able to feel they're part of what you're trying to do to improve their lot. And what can we do in the midterm? And of course, budget, in terms of budgetary procedures, you talk of midterm arrangements, some of which are programs under the Bretton Woods institutions. In fact, we had hoped that representatives of Bretton Woods would also come and share with us. I'm not sure whether they're still coming, but I just wanted to make your task more focused so that you don't deal with some of the long-range issues we may raise from this end. Actually, the thing about national dialogue in this committee is a part of national healing. So you hear some of us having those exchanges, okay? Because like Kimani wants to heal, he wants, this thing about SGR seems to be worrying him a lot. And others maybe have, some of us have deeper issues to worry about. But I think we'll spare you for now, and please give us, because one thing the controller of the budget did was she saw a relationship between the high cost of living and capital flight. That's an issue. I don't know whether our friends was in Njoroge from budget, Nyaga from the budget Parliamentary Budget Committee, so that we see these things and be able to pronounce ourselves on the way forward as a committee, so that we can help ourselves, help our people. The lower, one thing has also come out clear, Kimani, if you narrow, you kind of enhance the tax base, it becomes a bit more attractive, all right? So that people can pay taxes on a more voluntary basis. I just wanted to ask that you give us some precise presentation out of what you've been saying.
In short, Your Excellency, what you are advising them is that it's not everything that you may be able to answer in this forum. If there's what you can enrich with a more detailed presentation, please feel free, because as His Excellency says, what we want to do is to benefit from what Eugene said. A good idea could bring forth an even better idea. So if you have better ideas that you can help us with, we would really want to benefit from those. But maybe you can take 1 minute or 2 minutes each to sum up some of those issues that we had raised.
Yes, just to appreciate what the Controller of Budget did, she was very specific. When you're talking about lowering cost of living, what the mwananchi is feeling there. Basic things, sugar, they can't have the, cooking oil. Come in your response, a little bit a bit specific also. Say, like on our side, we are proposing the issue of, the doubling of the VAT from 8 to 16. We would like it to come back to 8. This housing thing, if there are alternatives, would like that dropped. So we would like some, and you don't have to answer everything now. Yeah. You can give the details in terms of proposals in your further written submissions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just to sum up again, we are here because of the picketing that was done. What have you to say about those who got, the ones who actually, what the losses they suffered during the picketing? Is that also not affecting us?
I think it's related to what I was asking Nyaga, whether the culture of political violence in a way causes the capital flight that we see and discourages foreign direct investments.
Chair, just as my closing remark, in fact, President Samia Suluhu actually said it by herself, that the violence in Kenya has gotten investors to invest in Tanzania. She said it, it's on record.
Don't put words in her mouth. She said, nchi jirani. It's only that that nchi jirani, of course, that is always avoiding mentioning countries.
You must ask the question, why the violence? Yeah. You must always go to the root cause of these things. Unless you kind of...
Your Excellency, we can never justify violence.
No.
There can only be reason as to why we buried violence, but we should not be seen to justify
We buried
violence.
Kenyans simply because they wanted food on the table. That's very important.
Okay, 2 minutes each, please. Margaret. Sorry, I keep confusing her name, Mary and Margaret.
I think it's Margaret.
Margaret Nyakango.
It's Margaret, and you forgot salt. Do you know the price of salt has gone up or sure? I was in a village called Isongo in Kakamega, and the ladies told me, salt, at Omena, everything has gone up.
Omena that we just get from the lake. That tells you that the global recession is real, because if even the cost of omena or even salt that is mined from the water, but you of course know getting salt from water is a manufacturing process. When the cost of electricity goes up, the cost of labor goes up, everything is bound to go up, and that's why we really endeavor to deal with this issue in a very rational and objective way, so that we get your expert opinions.
Imani, on a lighter note, not everything has gone up. Some of our values are important. If you want to marry a Kamba girl, you just bring nine cattle. 9 heads. So we may have to revert to 96 goats. Don't worry.
I wish I was not married. I wish I was not married, Your Excellency.
Chair, we are not very well on time.
Okay, Margaret.
Chairs,
You want to go to Bunge?
The area I want to talk about just a little in the 2 minutes, near Funge, are we able to establish like how much foreign direct investment has been raised in the last 1 year? This is not possible. Why? Because you cannot do marketing and already get the sales. This is not, I mean, the cost and effect is not direct. But having said that, the marketing must be matched by, or rather with the back office services. So what do I mean? If we go out there looking for foreign direct investments, but the investors come and find that our environment is hostile, then we will not have matched the cost that we spend to market with the investments that we can get. So we need to pull up our socks somewhere in the back office. Then there is the issue of state capture in terms of some of the projects. And I just wanted to say that the Auditor General is already on the issue of the SGR. Now, I may not know the extent to which the report has been prepared and what it will bring out, but we all know our systems and they are quite lengthy. So I guess what I could say, I wish the Auditor General was here themselves. They would have told us how far they have gone. I think from where I sit, and given that we have been given more time to go and look at these issues and beef up the presentations, I would like to just be very grateful for this opportunity that the committee gave us to give our contributions.
Thank you, Margaret. I hope you do not suffer the same fate under this regime as you did under the last regime.
I have you there.
Yes, you can count on us.
She will not suffer.
You can count on us. Kwame?
Okay. First, I think the major driver of the cost of the distress that households feel about cost of living is the price of food. It's also clear that the income support that government gives through cash transfers is insufficient, both in terms of the number of people covered and the amount. So even without necessarily changing the amount, basically expanding it to say 1-2 million other households is all affordable. 8 billion shillings for the top, I mean the bottom 25%, that's doable. It's not too much money, and it will have substantial effects, basically even cohesion. So that's one. We emphasize that. We still think that the housing levy is a bad idea. A superior idea would be actually to use the same resources that have been generated to expand schools throughout the country. Why? Because the demand for schools is just going to grow up, but also schools construction create local jobs. As opposed to constructing condominiums in Nairobi. There'll be fancy apartments, certainly, whatever they would be, but that doesn't create, most of it tends to be capital intensive. I think the third question is, nobody mentions it, the word privatization is considered a bad word. The government of Kenya has substantial assets of very high value. And when you have a problem with making payments, if you can't pay pensioners and you can't feed kids, or you can't construct schools, you let go of assets. And some of those assets could be in a transparent way, governed by a law that Parliament would pass, and it would actually provide some substantial relief. It's not necessarily a solution, but it could provide substantial relief in the short, in the short run. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kome, and PBO.
These are your guys.
I just give them, they are due 2 minutes, but maybe Kome also to inform you that the housing programs are coming also with an element, and maybe just to agree with His Excellency, there's a lot of talk on the housing that information and maybe the ministry should do more to inform Kenyans. Because, for instance, many of the housing projects are coming as mixed-use units with the hospitals, incorporated with them, and including schools. And therefore, it may cater for some of the things you're talking about. Nyaga?
Thank you so much, Chair.
You don't build a settlement, for instance, replace the entire of Kibra, for instance, where you're housing, say, 1 million people. Do multi-dwelling units that will accommodate 4 or 5 million people, and you don't provide social amenities like schools, hospitals, common user facilities like playgrounds for them, and all those are there. Nyaga?
Thanks so much, Chair. FDA is affected by the climate of doing business in the country, and some of the issues that drive The climate of doing this include 1, political stability, 2, education, infrastructure, good infrastructure, regulations, taxation, including property rights. So you can look at it in a wider format. Number 2
was the Foreign Protection. Remember Foreign Investment Protection Act? It's okay.
Yeah. On the other issue, Chair, you raised the issue about the big ticket investments like SGR. I would imagine if we design them well, you can get the dollars in here, so that those investments are not done here, but the money is transacted outside. So I think that could be a good idea. You can extend the SGR or do other things, including climate financing projects, which is actually a new opportunity for FDI.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Nyaga, Masinde, Komewino, and the Institute of Economic Affairs and the Control of Budget. We, again, in conclusion, just have to say, should there be anything of value that you find of value to this committee and to the country, please feel free to share with us, either in writing. Also feel free to join us tomorrow as we engage, especially on the housing issue. I would really want to get an engagement between Kwame Owino and the Institute of Economic Affairs and the Ministry of Housing on in particular proposals on housing and what they have, and probably could also benefit from also getting information and Kenyans getting more information on the housing agenda as envisioned by them tomorrow. We thank you for your time, and sorry we kept you quite for almost the whole day. It's now 4:45 p.m. But you will also bear with us, because this is one amongst the issues, as His Excellency said, that are very key to this committee and indeed to the country, because the cost of living and the global recession are indeed matters of concern, not just to Kenyans, but to many people around the world. And homemade solutions we can come up with your help would be of great benefit, not just to this committee, but to Kenyans at large. Thank you. God bless you. So, yeah, members, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Senate is sitting. 9:30.
Yeah, by 1. Let's make it 9.
Then we will also have to sit on Monday. Because the National Treasury and the yes, so Secretariat, we have agreed we meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. with the Housing Department, and then Monday morning with the National Treasury and the Ministry of Energy. Then maybe on Monday we can agree on which other day to meet in the course of that week to look at the instruments as we had agreed, and now